Good morning, everyone. It's Heather Cooper with Playing with Paper Crafting, and a great Monday morning to you. It's my regular Monday morning live video. I'm a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Canada, and today we're going to be looking at a project from the Sale-a-bration Brochure. I just wanted to let you know that this is the last week of Sale-a-bration, which is unusual this year because it used to go to the end of March. This year it's ending in February. Hi, Gail. It's ending in February because they're bringing it back again in the summertime in July and August. So we have that to look forward to. At the same time, there'll be totally different rewards offered then. So if you want in on this round of Sale-a-bration rewards, you need to take action before the end of this week. So let me know if there's anything that you want by the end of the week, and I'll see that you get your order in before it's too late. All right, enough said. We're going to get started on this project. For this one, I used a layout from Freshly Made Sketches, their challenge. And that's kind of why you see this unusual ribbon formation here. But we're going to use some watercoloring techniques, and we're also going to use a set from our January to June Mini Catalogue called Many Messages. And I want to show you how to use that set as well. Okay, so let's get a move on here. All right, so we're going to start with our card base as usual, but all I'm going to do is fold it for now because I don't want to add. Well, I suppose I could if I add the ribbon, but I think it's probably better if we wait because I want to be able to see where to position the ribbon. We're going to have two bits of ribbon. It's that metallic mesh that was carried over from our July to December, or August to December mini catalog this year. Okay, now this is the Very Delightful Designer Series paper, which I've grown to love. I didn't like it when I first saw it because I felt like there was too many primary colors in it, but since I've started using it, I've grown to love it. So there's all sorts of berries in it. Strawberries, raspberries, blueberries, and probably others I can't name. But they're all watercolor designs, and that's what makes them so pretty. Okay, so this is going to go on there, but we need to add the mesh to it, and I can't add the mesh until I'm ready to add this element to it. So let's get working on our watercoloring. I'll just set that aside for now. This is shimmery white cardstock, and I use this when I want to watercolor, when I want to have a more smooth surface than regular watercolor paper. Okay, so we're going to get started. This is the Berry Blessings stamp set, and it and the Very Delightful Designer Series paper are one of the level 2 rewards in our Sale-a-bration brochure. That means you have to spend $120 in Canada to be able to get that. Okay? All right, so we're going to start with the outline of the leaves, and I'm going to stamp that outline in. Oh, no, we're not. We're going to start by doing the background. What am I thinking? So we're going to watercolor in a really, really light background, and we're doing it in Pacific Point. I've got to watch my fingers. I'm always getting them in the ink. How's everybody doing? We had a Chinook blow through here last night. The ground was covered with snow when I went to bed, And when I woke up, it was virtually all gone. So, and now it's kind of balmy outside. I don't know how long that'll last, but it was kind of nice. Okay, so I'm just squeezing out my water painter, aqua painter. I'm using the old aqua painter, which is retired now, but you can get the new water painters. Okay, so I'm just getting a really light wash. I squeezed my pad against the lid, which is a little easier to do with the old pads than the new ones, but you can do it with the new ones, which I'll show you in a bit when I use one of the newer pads. And I'm just taking a tiny bit of color and squeeze through a lot of water. And now I'm just going to add that to my paper and just squeeze a little extra water onto that. Now when I did my original, you don't need much more than that. When I did my original, I squeezed out a couple. I'm just going to clean my brush off here. Okay, squeezed off a couple of water drops. And, oh, that's a big one. I think I'll just spread that through. But if you get some water on the tip of your brush, just drop that on. You can get some interesting effects if you daub it up right away. Just absorb it. Okay, let me try that again. Don't want too big. See what that did. Oh, it's not absorbing. Hey Ken. Hey Ken, could you bring me some paper towel, please? I'm just going to go over this again. I'm getting an interesting sort of bloom in my watercoloring here, but I really wanted to get a few of those water drops. Thanks. Okay, let's try again. Okay, that should do it. Clean my brush and take a little piece of paper towel, which is way more absorbent. Yeah, works sort of. Anyway, every time you do watercolor, you get different effects. So be prepared for variety. Okay, I'm going to dry that now because I want it to, I want to be able to use it right away. And I'm too impatient to let it dry. And this is a video, so we don't want to wait. And as it dries, you can see I'm picking up more of the interesting water details that I didn't have before. I like to dry it from both sides so it doesn't warp. And I just bend it a little bit in the direction that I'm getting the warp in. And then the heat helps to keep it straight. It doesn't take much to dry. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to do our stamping. I'm going to bring in my paper Stampin' Up! Or Stampin' Pierce mat, paper piercing mat, whatever, some kind of a mat, because I'm using photopolymer stamps. So I'm going to start by stamping the leaves, and I'm starting the outline first. I find it's easier when you're doing two-step stamping to stamp the darker color outline first, because it's easier for me anyway to find the shapes through the outline to match them up, or through the when you're looking through the stamp to find the outline if you're looking at darker ink. Oops, got a little hair on there. Okay. I'll clean my stamp. Tuck it away. All right, so for the outline, we're going to do Granny Apple Green, and we're going to stamp off once. So I'm going to bring that scrap paper back in to use. I don't know if you can hear it, but they're doing some construction or something up the hill. And they've got one of those hydraulic machines that has I don't know what you would call it, rhythmic pumping sound. Drives me crazy. There we go. Okay, now we're going to do just the outline of the berries in Pacific Point, and then I'm going to watercolor in the berries because I wanted to get different colors. If you notice on my card here, I don't have just one color. I've colored them in different colors, and that's because I really like the look that you got on the designer series paper. They had different colors for the berries. So anyway, I'm just not seeing any comments here, so I don't know if people aren't making them or if I'm just not finding them. So I'll see if I can find you on the tablet. Usually they come up on my phone, and that's why I've been standing, so that I can see them. There we are. Trouble with my tablet though is that there's a lag, so sometimes I don't see them. There's Doreen. Oh, Doreen just saying hi. Okay. Hi, Doreen. Oh, here we go. Getting rusty opening those old ones. Don't use them that often. Okay, so I'm going to stamp the outline, and I wasn't sure where to position them because I was thinking you had to hook them up at the little edges there, and it didn't seem to work. But then I remembered that those were the flowers, and they would have been on the ends, so they go the other way, and that seemed to make more sense. Okay, so we'll start with the Pacific Point. I think I missed that one big time. So I'm going to get a little bit darker blue this time to fill in this berry. Just lighten that up a little bit, pull the color towards the center. And I want to just leave a highlight there that isn't colored in. And when you're watercoloring, once you've got it wet, you can add little drabs of darker ink. I could take it right from the pad if I wanted to, just around the edges. I think that's pretty dark, probably as dark as it's going to get. And we'll just leave that one. I'll dry them all in a minute. Let's clean my brush. I'm going to go with Night of Navy for the next one. Trouble closing. There we go. Okay, Night of Navy is an old pad as well. I've got lots of ink still left in the lid. So I'll start with lighter. Again, leaving a bit of a highlight on it. And then pick up some really dark ink, the dried stuff, and just dip that around the edges. And it just kind of blossoms into the rest of it. All right. I'll clean off the brush. That's what's so cool about these aqua painters or water painters, either one, is that they have their own reservoir of clean water. And to clean your brush, you just need to keep painting on a separate surface until they come clean, and you don't have to worry about messing up your clean water. Because I've done a little bit of watercoloring, and that was always my issue, is that no matter what you did, you always had your clean water eventually became dirty. Okay, so now I'm using Garden Green. For the last one, I'm going to start light. Not too much water here. And just fill this in with the light Garden Green. And then dry my brush off a bit more and pick up some of the darker green to just drop in around the edges. Like that. Okay. Oh, look what I've done. Nice going. Well, we'll have to marry that in with the rest of it by adding some water and maybe some more paint. Watercoloring is forgiving, even with a klutz like me. Okay, so we'll just try to add that into our background and cover it with mesh. Okay, so let's see how that goes. We'll get our tool out to dry, our heat tool out to dry that off. Make sure that my brush is clean. And then we'll assemble the card except for the sentiment, which I'm going to show you how to make the many messages work. Turn that one over. Go this way so I can bend that a bit. And this way. Okay. Now, when I go to adhere that to the Pacific Point background, I'm going to use some strong adhesive. So I'm picking my Stamp and Seal Plus for that, because it's our strongest tape runner. We have Stamp and Seal and Stamp and Seal Plus. And this is when you want a really strong adhesive. And we do because of the warping, so we want to get that adhered really, really strongly. And we've got about 1/8 of an inch. If you want the measurements for this, they're all on my blog today at playingwithpapercrafting.com. Okay, now let's bring in our metallic mesh ribbon. So we need about, I guess it's about 5 inches, accounting for the overlap. I have my scissors in here. Okay, so we're going to keep that Stamp and Seal Plus. So that helps to cover up my boo-boo there. And what do we say in stamping? There are no mistakes, just opportunities for embellishment. So I'm going to make that strip along the back large enough so that I can adjust the ribbon where I want it. I don't want it too low, otherwise I'm going to have to move this element too low on the card itself. Okay. There we go. Now, what we want to do is bring in the Designer Series paper and kind of mark about where, let's put this here and try to center this and see where abouts on here that comes. Okay, so right about at the 5 1/4 mark here. So we need some more mesh. That's probably about 6 inches, I would guess. Let's see if I'm right. Oops, 6 1/2. Okay. So the 5 1/4, right about there. We turn this over at the 8-inch mark, and we'll know to add our adhesive at the 5 1/4. This grid paper isn't just for, you know, keeping things clean. It comes in really handy when you want to measure things. All right. We want our thing to come in right about there. Down just a little bit. The nice thing about this ribbon and the Seal Plus is that it's easy to take off again. So when we line these two up, those are pretty much centered. Okay, so that means that we can go ahead and add this to our card base. And I'm going to use my Stampin' Seal. You could use liquid, which is probably a little bit cheaper if you want to use that. But I've got this handy, and I don't want to get glue all over my fingers, so because as you've seen, I'm a bit of a klutz. Okay, so let's center that. Okay. Now I'll do the same on this, and I think I will use the Seal Plus on this because it's still resisting being straight. We want to make sure that the ribbon is the same on both sides. Okay, now all we're missing is our sentiment, and that's the second part of this project. So we're going to be using a new concept that Stampin' Up! Came out with, and it's something called many messages. So it's like getting what's the word? A stash of sentiments all together at once. So this is a whole bunch of different messages on one stamp, and then there's a die that cuts them all out. And we're going to try that out. I felt like this Stamparatus was the best way of using that. First of all, it's got that great big stamp base because this is a big one. And secondly, if some of these didn't ink up properly, then you could, re-ink them and start again. So, and you could also keep it there and try a whole bunch of different colored inks and papers and whatnot. I'm going to emboss them in white, and the size of paper that it takes for this is 6.5 by 5. Okay, so I'm just going to add it here, straighten it out. For this, because it's a cling stamp, you don't need to have the foam padding in your Stamparatus. So you just need it on the base, and I've added one of the coverings, so that fits on there really well. Some things that I found out last night as I was using them is right in, I don't know if you can see it, right in this area, it's really easy to get ink on these inside areas that will transfer to your paper and ruin your images in that area. So you have to press lightly, both with your stamp pad in this area and when you're pressing it on the Stamparatus. So that's something to be careful of. So we're going to emboss with white embossing powder. So I'm going to use my static reducing tool here, formerly called Embossing Buddy. We don't carry them anymore, but whatever you can find to do that is really important for this. I really need to get as much of that static reduced as possible so we don't end up with a lot of excess powder in areas we don't want it that we have to remove by using a brush or something like that. Okay, so I'm going to use Versamark, and I'm just going to be very, let me move it over so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to be very light in this area. A little bit more pressure in this more densely populated area here. Lighter up here. And it's sometimes hard to know, and especially when you're using Versamark, if you've got everything covered. But the thing is, I mean, if you don't get it the first time, you've got lots of sentiments here that you can use. You can always retry on another piece of cardstock. Okay, let's hope that did it. I found that some of these didn't come through quite so well, so just going to give them a little extra push there. Gail, I did last night. It was tricky to get them completely lined up, and there was a couple that seemed to always get cut off a little bit. You could still use them, but so I'm going to press lightly there, and I'm going to press a little more heavily closer to the hinge, but lightly here. Okay. I think there may be some that probably didn't come out right in the manufacturing process. So if yours isn't working right, I would suggest that you get Stampin' Up! To replace it, and I'm sure they will. Because I can imagine like one slip, or you know, if the die moves as it's going through the manufacturing process, it wouldn't take much of a, you know, just a millimeter move and things would be off. So I can imagine that it's a bit tricky. Okay, so now we're going to add the embossing powder. Oh yeah, that worked way better this time. Experience is the best teacher. Into every life a few tears must fall. If at first you don't succeed, try again. And all those other platitudes. This is where I appreciate, something like this is where I appreciate having my embossing powder in a container like this. And that happy birthday doesn't seem to come out very well. I don't know if there's something wrong with the stamp for me or what. I just haven't been able to get it to come out properly. Probably I just didn't have it inked up properly. But it's so hard to tell. Okay. Now we're going to heat set it. Yeah, learning curves for sure. Okay, so now this is another really important step, is to make sure that everything is heat set. And you need to really look at it carefully to make sure that it's heat set. So once you think you're done, look it over and make sure everything is shiny, because if you have anything that's flat white, it means it hasn't heat set yet, and when you try to die cut, it'll brush off. Okay, so see how white that is? But the upside of taking all this trouble is that you're going to have so many sentiments that you can use And just pick out of a container you're going to keep them in and have at your fingertips to use on your cards. So it's a great concept. I think embossing with this one is the trickiest one. I think just plain stamping with Memento ink or any other color of ink is your best bet, because then you can see right away if we don't have something properly inked up, and on the Stamparatus you can go by, re-ink it and stamp again and it'll be perfect. Now just, oh, I see one right away here. Looking it over. Okay, I think it's good. I'm going to do the acid test now. Hi, Eunice. Just going to rub it lightly. Looks like we're good. Okay, I'm going to bring in my stamp and cut and emboss machine here. And now we're going to try to fit the die to the stamped image. Okay, so I've been told that if you line up the hearts and the stars, that's your best bet for getting everything lined up. And there's so many different ways to adjust. You know, I think that's the best I've done out of all the times I've tried it. I'm not going to mess around with it anymore. Yeah, looks good, doesn't it, Gail, on the Night of Navy? Okay, yeah, not touching that. And we'll run it through. Whoa, okay. That was noisy. Let's see how we did here. Remove that. And yeah, that's the best that I've had it turn out. This is the happy anniversary in this one. These two tend to not come out completely within. But better than it's been. Okay, so I've made myself a little box and I'm just going to store. I'm just going to try and remove the outline here. And then I just have to pick up all the, where did my waste basket go? Then I'm going to use this one for my card and put the rest away. And I'll be able to use them for later cards. So handy. There we go. I'll get rid of that. And a little box full of sentiments over there. We'll bring back our card. I'll add a couple of dimensionals and we'll be all done. Okay, there we go. All right, so there's a couple of little tricks for you. Yeah, it would. Black would be good too. Plus, just think of all the colors you could put onto white and later colored cardstock as well. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if there are any, that's it for today's Monday Morning Live. It'll be posted on my Facebook page and Playing with Paper Crafting, and also on my blog you'll be able to find out all the measurements if you want to try this technique or this card. Okay. Nice to have you with me again, Gail and Eunice and anyone else that was watching, and we'll see you again next Monday. Okay, bye-bye.